Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, I found evidence of my fiancé cheating on me, but I'm getting married very soon. Here is how I got revenge. Let's dive right into the video. The main story is titled, I'm getting married in 7 days and I am beyond screwed. So I need help because I'm pretty sure my life is falling apart. I met Jessica around 2017. It started out as just a mutual friendship until we grew to like each other's company more and more. We never really expected it to grow past this point, but maybe it's because most of our interactions were still around other friends for most of our early friendship. Then the pandemic struck. Of course, no one knew what was gonna come with the lockdown in our modern era. In many ways, we are the best suited the human race has ever been for such a thing, in others we certainly are not. So I locked myself in my apartment and got lucky that my job was able to very quickly transition to an online environment. It did not take me long to deeply hate this. I was still in contact with many of my friends and family, but I was struggling to communicate emotionally with them. I didn't have as much to relate to with some of them because we didn't occupy the same online space. Many of those who were as comfortable as I am in the online space, this is not my first time on this site by the way, even if I don't post often, were still thriving by the time I had started to flounder. I kept feeling drawn to speak to Jessica even though I was sure that she had far worse things to be concerned about than silly old me. And I would not be writing this post if I hadn't reached out to her. We seem to have found that we were exactly what the other needed. Simply put, we bared our hearts to each other over the next few months and she may have saved my life. It didn't take long for us to find that the simplest way to describe our relationship was dating. I did not wait long to propose once we got a chance to see each other after getting tested. She moved in with me shortly after that, and from that point on everything seemed like it would be perfect. After a while, everything seemed to return to normal in the world around us. I thought I had worked a miracle and made it out the other side of the pandemic better than I had started it. I knew just how lucky this was as I lost an uncle to the pandemic and one of my lifelong friends lost his grandma who had practically raised him because of how irresponsible his parents were. Jessica and I emerged from isolation all the better for the reintroduction of our social life. We took things slow and mostly just enjoyed staying in with groups of friends, and then we would go out with them and then we would go out on the town together. All through it, I made it clear that Jessica could choose the date of the wedding since I had sprung it on her quickly after our relationship started. Eventually, the world finally seemed distant enough from the depths of quarantine and Jessica decided that she was ready for a wedding. At least that is what I was hoping was going through her mind when this all started. She started planning everything 4.5 months ago. She also started to act strange. I figured it was just anxiety. We both trusted each other with everything through much of our dual quarantine. And it didn't seem like she was exactly hiding things, but she started to get upset if I was somewhere behind her while she was on her phone. She would really get flustered if I ever entered a room without her realizing it first. None of this seemed to line up even with the Jessica I knew from before the pandemic, but a blissful part of me was somehow willing and able to imagine that it was just isolation changing her as it had changed all of us. I've never been one to invade my partner's privacy, by the way. If I've built enough trust that we are living together and have our possessions lying around everywhere, then I accept that as a statement of integrity. After all, I don't have to dig through my partner's messages if it's sitting on a coffee table available for me to do it, or at least that's how I view it. When I ended up waiting for Jessica to finish her shower and her phone started getting text notifications, I'll admit that the strange behavior came to mind. I wasn't gonna dig any deeper, but I'd see who she was receiving texts from. It turned out I did not need to dig too deep. She was receiving texts from a guy named Thomas. The text seemed routine and tied to work until I scrolled a little further up and saw the end of their last conversation. They had established some sort of minor code to start and end conversations, so if I just opened up the conversation, it would look normal, but the real meat was in between. Sexting, planning meetings, complaints about me, and how unfulfilling I am sexually. It was making me legitimately sick to my stomach to read these messages, but I had to know one other thing. I scrolled to the top of the conversation and saw that it had started about 3 months ago. 3 months! I hope none of you know just how much finding something like this out can make you question everything good you have in your life. My fiancé got out of the shower and I gave her her phone. I felt like an idiot when I said, "Someone named Thomas messaged you. It looked like it was about work." I felt even worse when she snatched the phone from me and was instantly defensive about the fact that I opened up her phone. She asked if I was snooping and I just raised my hands in surrender and said no and apologized about the invasion of privacy and all that jazz. It's been a day or two now and I don't know what to do. I have a feeling that I know what 90% of the comments are gonna read, but maybe that's what I need to make a tough decision. Thank you all for reading this. I guess I needed to vent as much as I needed help. Update to the story. Alright, you guys have been blowing up the comments on here and I finally feel like I can come in here and update you guys. So I've been wanting to thank you for nearly the whole week, but at first things were really tough and I didn't think I had it in me to share this. So by the time things were going to get better, I decided that I wanted to wait until I could tell the whole story. Now that time has come. Also, I want to clarify that I did propose so early because my family has been notably horrible to family members that have moved in with partners before at least engagement. I made this clear to Jessica when I proposed so she wouldn't feel pressured that it meant we had to get married right away. Back to the story though. I was pretty sure I knew what I needed to do right away, but I needed encouragement and I really found that here. So I knew I had to confront her. Our days were really busy with all the events that come with planning a wedding, but I managed to find time where I could be alone with her the day after my initial post. I was brutally honest with her at just what I had found and how emotionally destroyed I was. I told her that we should at least delay the wedding and maybe we would find that we needed to cancel it, but I wanted to wait on that decision until I was less emotionally involved. She waited through everything I said, though she did start crying and emotionally reacting in ways that she claimed to be uncontrollable in the moment. According to her, she had noticed that I hardly ate anything that day and spent most of the day trying to find my way out of any plans. She was not sure what was wrong with her, but guilt had been building up in her all day. When I brought her the phone and she immediately felt fearful and defensive, she said that guilt was building up in her and she realized what a horrible mistake she was making. She wanted to break it off with Thomas, but first she was concerned that this exact confrontation would be coming. She blubbered and begged that we don't cancel the wedding. She claimed that our relationship was all that helped her to make it through the quarantine and that I saved her and she didn't want us to end like this. In the moment, I was incredibly conflicted because the hurt was still deep down inside of me, but the part of me that desperately wanted to be wrong about everything jumped on the chance and forgave her, as long as I could see definite proof that she not only broke up with Thomas, but did everything in her power to never be around him again. Apparently, he did not work with her, which should have brought up new questions, so this was not too difficult for her. I still felt physically sick and I didn't tell my best friends because I knew that they would not be willing to forgive her and stand by me in the ceremony if they didn't fully trust her. They had already shown doubts early on when we got so close so quick. I had to do something though, or I was pretty sure I wouldn't make it through the ceremony, so I got a prenup written up. I decided that it could be proof of her honestly regretting her affair. It's not like I have tons of money, but I'm fortunate with the career I'm in, so this is by no means unfounded even if I wasn't planning it before. I brought it into her office to get her signature away from where family and friends would see. Only she was working from home today? Sure as hell she wasn't considering that I had dropped by the house before going to her office. All the better for me though, because I went straight home and logged into her computer. She had told me the password once a while back, and I never really referenced it, so I was pretty confident she wouldn't have changed it even after me catching her with the texts. I scrolled through and this time I dispensed with any semblance of courtesy. I went through all her different social media DMs and even her texts because she has Apple devices and the sync is oh so convenient. I wasn't finding anything, but I kept overlooking one conversation for the same reason that I didn't dig through her text with her parents or siblings. I just figured that I was well aware of her relationship with those people. My mind was changed the moment I started scrolling through some of her saved photos that she had hidden in different folders. Not password protected or anything, just defended by my own trust in her apparently. Don't I feel great for that now? Nudes, pictures of dates, a couple of amateur attempts at adult videos. One folder was all Thomas and the other one sent me straight to her text conversations with our wedding planner. So I mentioned we were planning the wedding for 4.5 months and I won't make you all actually wait, but I want you all to pause here and guess how long they had been screwing each other. It was several months. That was before she told me she wanted to finish the wedding and before she suggested him as the wedding planner. I guess that's one way to ensure that you will have weddings to plan. Find fiancés that are feeling promiscuous and cut the line of candidates for planning their wedding. This was when I finally told my best friends and when I finally felt good enough that I actually wanted to update you guys. But it was also when the ball started rolling and I wanted you guys to hear about the final piece of art. Let's go back a bit. It turns out Jessica really didn't like to delete anything. All her pictures and messages with both Thomas and the WP were recorded incredibly accurately. I sent it all to my buddies and let them know what I was planning. I did not even want the slightest chance of her finding any of the files on my phone or computer, so I had my buddies do a lot of the actual planning. I did have to do one thing though. Me and Jessica met with the wedding planner and I had one thing that I wanted to add to the ceremony. I wanted there to be a slideshow of important moments in our relationship during the vows. I figured we could both contribute and they would play over our heads. Jessica took this to mean that I had truly forgiven her, and WP assumed he was in the clear, I guess. They jumped on the idea and he set everything up. The day of the ceremony finally comes and my blood is up. I was worried I would have to hide my visual excitement, but then I remembered it was my wedding day. I didn't want to blindside some of my closest family and friends, so I had told them, but not a single person on her side of the aisle had a clue. The procession is beautiful, the music is divine, live piano, each bridesmaid is walked down the aisle by a groomsman with a devilish grin. I glowed. My mother cried and said that she couldn't wait for the day that I looked that happy for the woman walking down the aisle. I cannot help but agree, but for now I'm taking a break from serious dating. Anyway, the officiator was a poor old man, and my one regret standing there was that he wouldn't know what was coming. Jessica had vows that she had apparently written with her mother on her deathbed way back, or at least that's what she told me to make me convinced that she cared. She started reciting them and the first few images of the correct slideshow played. Then there was a selfie of her and WP kissing. That started some whispers and some shock through the crowd. It was a growing realization as the next slide showed conversations with the names labeled clearly on the text, planning dates in between cake tastings and dress fittings. I think most guys don't take their eyes off their bride during the ceremony, and that was one thing I shared with a normal wedding. I watched as she got enjoyment out of the reactions from the crowd. When the first nude of WP came up, the gasps were followed by her father bellowing, "Stop this nonsense!" That finally got her to look up. Her brows were furrowed as she looked out on the crowd, her whole side of the aisle with hands over their agape mouth. A lot of them were starting to cry around her father, who was standing and bellowing nonsense. Meanwhile, my side of the aisle was quiet. My mother was holding a program up so she wouldn't have to see the explicit imagery, but would still be able to watch the ruins of the ceremony. She looked up and I swear I've never seen blood drain out of her face so fast. A 5-star hotel has sheets darker than her face at that moment. Then the slide transitioned and we all got the full glory of her moans as WP, aka the wedding planner, drilled her for our viewing pleasure. Jessica's family demanded an end to it shortly after that. Her bridesmaids dragged her to a private room. WP was dragged back to me like a puppy carried by the scruff of his neck. I had a few cousins keep an eye on him when the slideshow started so he couldn't run. I ended up getting a full refund for his services. I accepted the loss of paying for the venue and the catering that I couldn't cancel in time. It was entirely worth it to watch Jessica experience just a fraction of the betrayal she handed my way on what most women hope is the best day of their lives. And yeah, ripe stars, let me know what you think about this relationship revenge story. Do you think OP did the right thing or did he go too far? Let me know in the comments, and while you're at it, please don't forget to like the video since that would help me tremendously. The next one is an Am I the A-hole story. I, 24 male, have been in a relationship with my 24 male boyfriend Jay for 2 years now, and we are planning on moving into my house next month, but things don't look that way anymore. So I am an orphan. I lost my parents 3 years ago, and me and my brother Sam, 20 male, inherited our parents' house and quite a lot of money. I wouldn't call us rich, but we are definitely comfortable. My parents were hit by a drunk driver and it took me over a year in therapy to get over it. My brother is still going and things have been getting better, but he still grieves a lot. We both got the house, but he wanted nothing to do with the house and asked me to buy him out of it, and I agreed. The house is now in my name and we got him an apartment 20 minutes from me, so we are still close to each other. When I met my boyfriend, I opened myself up again and fell in love, and we have a wonderful relationship, but the only problem is his cousin, Mike, 21 male. He hates me a lot and I honestly have no clue why. He hated me before I even met him. Jay defends him but tries to at least make him act nice in front of me. 3 days ago, I hosted a party at my house. In my house, I have a lot of pics of my parents, me, my brother, and all of us together. It makes me feel as though they are still with us and we are still a happy family. At my party, my friend Sam, Jay and his family were invited, and me and my boyfriend were planning to tell everyone that we are planning on moving in together. I was so excited, and Sam seemed to be enjoying himself for the first time in a long time, so I was pretty damn happy. Before we got to tell everyone, Mike looks at my brother and points to a picture of my parents and says, "I'm glad they are not here. The way they raised your brother makes them seem like crap parents." My brother got up, told me what he told him, and left. I was heartbroken. He seemed to be happy for once, and his cousin ruined it. Well, I told Jay to either remove Mike from my home or I would. Jay got defensive and said they were messing around and that my brother needs to be able to joke about stuff like this. I said, "You have 3 minutes to throw him out or I will." I set my timer and waited it out. My boyfriend did not seem to think that I was serious, and when time was up I told everyone that Mike is no longer welcome in my house, and if he didn't leave now, I would call the cops. His family said if he goes, then they go. Here is why I think I might be an a-hole, but still think my actions were justified. I told them, "I don't give a damn about you all when you cannot even teach that guy manners, so get the F out." They then left and my friends helped me calm down. They said they get that I was mad, but I was out of line. Jay is threatening to break up with me, and my brother just said to forgive them, but I cannot. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for kicking my boyfriend's family out? Edit, just wanted to say that his family backed Mike as well, and that's why I said what I said. And yeah, ripe stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this story. Is OP the a-hole or not? I would say OP is certainly not the a-hole. That is certainly a family of douchebags. Anyway, comment number 1, not the a-hole, break up with Jay and change the locks on your house if he has a key. He clearly doesn't respect you. Let his family insult you and your dead parents in your home after you graciously hosted them. You deserve better. I'm so sorry for the loss of your parents. Comment number 2, not the a-hole. That was the most insensitive, rude, a-hole-ish thing I've ever heard. Who says stuff like that to someone who lost their parents? Your phrasing may have been over the top, but I don't feel like you overreacted at all. As a matter of fact, I think Jay and his family underreacted. How could they excuse a statement like that is beyond me. Good for you standing up for your brother and yourself like that. Comment number 3, not the a-hole. If they cannot respect you, your family, or your deceased parents in your home, they know where the door is. Update to the story. I had a long talk with my brother. He says that if I want to forgive Jay, then I should do that and that he will be in my side no matter what, but he won't ever be in the same room as Mike again, and if I ever host a party or anything like that and Mike is there, he won't go. Jay and I had a talk today at lunchtime. I took a sick day and just wanted this to be over so I could go on with my life. And then Jay came to my house and the first thing he said was ready to apologize to Mike, and I told him that if he didn't change his tone and cut the crap that I would throw the door in his face. He looked shocked at my response and came in and sat down so we could talk. I told him that what Mike said is just evil and that I won't have him disrespect my late parents and my brother. I told him that I won't ever be in the same room as him again. Jay stayed quiet, took his phone out, sent a text, and then he started to talk. He basically said that it was meant as a joke and that me and Sam took it way too personal, which made me yell at him. We argued about 10 minutes more and then Mike showed up. I looked at Jay and he told me to just hear him out being the idiot I apparently am. I did. He said, and I quote, "I'm sorry you and your brother cannot take a joke, but can we get past this now?" I said to Mike, "Get out," and he left. Jay started to yell, but I just said, "We are over," and told him to get out. He started crying and told me he was sorry. I just took my keys back and threw him out. I'm not even sad, I'm just hurt and angry, but thank you to all of you. Your comments helped and I'm grateful. This whole thing will probably sink in later today or tomorrow, so once again, thanks to all of you. By the way, I haven't blocked him yet as I still need to get some of the things I left at his place, but after that I will block him and his family. And yeah guys, props to OP for turning the situation around, and I hope that OP will find someone better in the very near future. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I'll try my best to write it as one coherent story the best I can. So, since the time I've been living in the area, the neighborhood has been a mixture of houses and farms with nobody seeming to have much of a problem about it. That was until a single Karen showed up with a plan. That plan being to start an HOA, aka Homeowner Association, and be in charge of the entire thing. I know they say dream big, but she should have dreamed a little smaller than that perhaps. Creating an HOA here had some roadblocks, and the biggest one being that there had to be a certain number of homeowners to actually constitute an HOA forming. Because all the farms took up a bunch of land but counted as a single homeowner, it meant that there was not enough space. Only so many homes existed and there was no space for more. Any sane person would have just given up at this point, but we were dealing with a Karen. Her solution to this problem that only existed in her mind was to bully the farmers out of the neighborhood. She used two main tactics in order to accomplish this. The main one was slander, where she would just go and talk crap about the farms to everybody else to try and get them to boycott us all and all our products. Saying things like that we lied about the quality of our produce and that eating it would make you sick, as well as telling people their children growing up around farms would cause them to not care about their education. They would not go to college and end up poor without any good education, forgetting how to even do simple things like read and write. And Karen might be kind of right there, because growing up near such an entitled Karen could indeed have a negative effect on your children, so please be sure to not let your kids grow up near entitled people. However, I would say growing up near farmers is probably one of the better things you can do. Anyway, I honestly don't know how many people believe this nonsense because I wasn't paying much attention to it. I assumed she would burn out and things would just start going back to normal. The second thing she did was flat out harass the farmers and make it very unpleasant for them to live in the area, insulting them and basically making it so anywhere we went we couldn't get peace. I got thick skin, so it takes a lot for me to get upset by trivial things. I can see the constant slander and harassment getting to some people though and making them wanna leave. A number of farms got sold off, and in a few months houses were built on the land and new families moved in. The more that moved in, the less friendly they were towards the few of us farmers remaining. She did have enough people now to start her precious HOA, and you can be sure that I did not agree to become a part of that. I wanted nothing to do with Karen, and having to listen to her like she was the queen of the neighborhood or something, it was not my idea of a good time. I was under the false notion that her getting her way meant that the issues she had with us farmers would stop. Little did I know that the slander and harassment was only the tip of the iceberg for how far she would go with it. I guess you can consider this part 2 of the story, where I finally interact with Karen personally. It turns out that she had a new mission, and that was to get rid of every last farmer in the area. Since none of her past tactics were working on me, she decided to move on to attempted intimidation and outright threats of violence. One day she came over to my farm, and when I opened the door and saw it was her, I had to suppress a sigh. I did not want to deal with her crap, but she started talking before I could tell her to F right off. Karen, I wanted to get the details of when you plan to sell the property. Me, I'm not selling the farm, Karen. Karen, all of these other farmers left, so you should just follow suit and leave too. This area clearly is not for you anymore, so you should get out. Me, not all farmers left. Let's get that right. This farm is my livelihood and I have no plans to stop anything I'm doing here. Me and my animals are all staying, so you might as well deal with it. Karen, you're doing damage to the neighborhood by staying here. The cost of homes are much lower the closer they are to farms like yours. We are trying to make a nice area, and because of you, the entire place is being devalued. You have to leave. Me, I don't have to do anything except kick you the hell off of my farm. Leave, please. Karen, you will not like what happens if I have to come back. I might even bring my gun and shoot you dead right on your porch. And well, she did leave and I ignored everything she threatened me with. I had no idea if she really owned a gun, but I really didn't buy into anything she said. I knew she got off of threatening people to get what she wanted. She had probably done it all her life and it was not gonna work with me. Nothing she could say was gonna make me want to move away and leave my farm behind. I guess she knew that too, because the next time I saw her, she was not using words to try and get my property. She showed up with the actual police and started claiming that I was trespassing on her land. Now, just for a second, I want to talk about the appearance of both of us. I was wearing overalls, old boots, and had constant dirt under my nails. Karen was wearing designer clothing, jewelry, heels, long fake nails, and a ton of makeup. The police really questioned if this was her farm, and she was adamant at first that it was. That they were her animals and she loved them all so much, and that I came to abuse them. The police asked her to show them her animals and she actually let them into my barn. I was not stopping any of this because I knew that my animals were not gonna like her. So then she ended up going to a pen that had one of my pregnant cows. Since she had become become pregnant, she was picky about anybody being near her. Karen claimed this cow was her little angel and attempted to go near her. Only of course for the cow to act aggressive and her to have to back off before I told the police the cow was pregnant and did not like people. Now that they did not believe her, Karen decided to flat out change her story in front of the same cops, saying that I sold her the property and now refused to leave with my animals. They were not amused at her lying and now did not believe her. If she led with that first lie, she might have actually had a chance to get them on her side. They told her it was not a matter for the police and if she paid for the property and I would not leave, she had to get a lawyer and take me to court. She started yelling at the police to arrest me because I am on her property and she is demanding that I am removed for trespassing. That me being there is a threat and they cannot just ignore her request. Little tip, never tell the police how to do their job. At least around here they will tell you right off and threaten to arrest you for harassing a police officer. She walks away in a huff and the police apologize for the entire situation. They also suggest that I get a lawyer ahead of time because she seems like the person that would actually pursue this thing further. I thank them for their time and go back to work and make sure my pregnant cow is calmed down. I did end up getting a lawyer like they told me and it was a good idea. Only a few days later she had gotten one as well and filed a lawsuit against me. This time her claim was simply that I sold her my farmland before and then changed my mind and now refused to leave. That I was squatting on the land and wanted a judge to order for my removal. It turns out that she had fake paperwork claiming to have gotten my farm a month ago, and the fact that she had papers actually worried me a little bit because they looked very real, at least at first. I knew they were fake, but for all I knew, a judge might see them as real. My lawyer and I were working like crazy to find a way to prove that her paperwork had been faked. Our argument of no money being exchanged was not working because of her claims that the money did not go through because I flat out rejected it and sent it back. Of course, despite no actual record of this existing. It was a weak argument for both sides and was not gonna sway a judge in either direction. Me owning the deed did not help either because of how new the supposed sale was and me not cooperating after signing the papers supposedly. Finally, we figured out how she had done it and we were able to expose her. Since other farms had gotten sold off due to her harassment, she managed to get a copy of the sale record for a different farm. She then just edited it to have my name and address with a fake signature. The papers looked real because they were real, just for a different farm. I was safe and my property was not going to be illegally taken away from me by Karen. Still, I was annoyed and requested to get a restraining order against her, claiming that I was scared she would try to take my property again or come over to harass me. I was granted one and Karen was now not allowed near me or the farm. For the fake documents, she did not end up going to prison and did not even lose her position as the head of the HOA. I should have felt relief, but instead I was angry. I did not think she learned a lesson that what she did was wrong. I feared her going after the other farmers in a similar way and wanted to stop that from happening. I remembered back to when she threatened me with a gun and decided that I might be able to get her in trouble for something else after all. So basically where I live, gun laws are pretty strict and it can be hard to even get a license or permit. Not only do you need to pass a background check and take a class, but you need a valid reason to own a gun. Only a few people in the area had them and for the most part they were for hunting. Farmers needed them to protect their animals, but aside from that it was extremely rare for them to have a gun. If she actually had one, I could not imagine it being legal. I called the non-emergency police line and told them I wanted to remain anonymous. That I was a concerned citizen because I heard that the head of the HOA had a gun and heard her telling people about it. That I was scared of somebody in the area having one and wanted the police to please make sure it was legal. The things I said to them caused a search warrant on her house a few days later. There must have been something else they saw or heard in order to get one just because of a gun claim. She was actually not lying about owning an illegal gun. That alone would not have sent her to prison either, but gotten her a misdemeanor charge and more importantly her reputation ruined. Nobody was gonna let the woman with an illegal gun run the HOA and be in charge of their safety. During their raid, it turns out they found way more than just her having a gun. Her entire basement was an illegal raid jackpot for the cops. She had 5 guns ranging from a pistol to a shotgun. each one would be a separate charge because not a single one of them was legal. On top of that, the basement was also being used as her base of operations because it was filled with drugs. Way more than just for personal use, so it was clear that she was dealing secretly out of her basement. Suddenly, certain things started making a lot more sense to me and everybody else in the area. I did not mention it before, but on top of her makeup she also wore a disgusting amount of perfume. I guess to mask any kind of smell she could be giving off. It also explained how I never saw her working but was able to have money for anything despite seeming to not work. Also, all the new people moving in loving her was because they were all her clients that she wanted closer to herself. Now, for her behavior, that was a total guess if it was due to her being high or just being a Karen. I like to think it was about half and half. Anyway, it was a huge show of the police taking her away and removing all the evidence from her home. It only took a couple of days for every single person in the neighborhood to hear what she had been doing. Her name was dragged so far through the mud that it might have just been left in it to drown. She was not getting a slap on the wrist for these charges either. She was charged for 5 counts of illegal gun ownership, drug possession, owning drugs with the intent to sell. I'm sure if we were able to contact the other farmers that left things like harassment or threats of violence, that could have been added on. Anyway, that did not end up happening, but it was okay because she was in plenty of trouble from just the guns and drugs already. I was not part of that trial obviously, so I don't know the details of it. All I know is that she ended up going to prison and I have yet to see her return. She also could not be the head of the HOA from there on, so we got a new woman leading it. This person was much nicer and did not have any issues with the remaining farmers being in the neighborhood. She also put a stop to the slander about us being a bad influence and our products being bad or making people sick. Even hinting maybe Karen was actually sick because of the drugs. Some other people ended up getting arrested or just leaving the area once Karen was finally gone. It was clear they were only there to stay close to their dealer, and when caught they ran. The actual home stayed and people moved in that did not know about all the drama and only the new calmer times. I can only have wished Karen didn't do any of this to begin with because of all the farmers that left directly because of her. I can only imagine how bad it would have been if we all left and she was in charge while continuing to sell the drugs. And here, ripe stars, I gotta say for this story in the end I am very glad that Karen finally ended up in prison. However, I feel like the country where OP is from, aka the farmer, does not have a very strong legal system and it does not seem to be in Europe or the United States. I feel like in most countries for the forged documents, Karen would have gotten arrested early on already. Especially in the United States and Europe, forging legal documents is a huge offense. You cannot just do that willy-nilly and hope that nothing happens to you. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance and I hope to see you again tomorrow.